Are you an overwhelmed SaaS founder ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds you know and those you don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
Welcome back to the SaaS Fuel podcast, where customer loyalty is more than just delight. It's about making people so freaking productive they need a nap after logging into your platform. I'm your host, Jeff Maines. I help B2B SaaS founders like you grow from traction to scale. Here, growth is more than just numbers. It's about crafting a future-proof company, premium valuation, and leaders who build a business of significance while living epic, adventurous lives. Why do customers who seem perfectly satisfied still end up leaving? No complaints, no warning signs, just a quiet exit that shows up later in your churn numbers. Well, today we're going to challenge one of the most common assumptions in customer experience, that satisfaction equals loyalty. You'll hear why metrics like NPS and CSAT often tell an incomplete story and how they give teams a false sense of confidence while customers are already halfway out the door. And we're seeing that more and more in this AI world now. We dive into a far more predictive idea, effort, how hard your customers have to work to get what they need, and why even small friction points can compound into frustration, doubt, and ultimately defection. The conversation explores the concept of insidious disloyalty, where customers don't complain, they just disappear, and why that is the most dangerous kind of churn at all. You'll also get some practical insights on how to spot and eliminate that friction across your entire customer journey, from simplifying support interactions to using AI in a way that actually reduces effort instead of adding it. If you're focused on retention, customer experience, or building a business people stick with long term, this episode will shift your thinking from delighting customers to making their lives easier, and why that's really the thing that keeps them around. Let's dive in. Our expert guest last Thursday was Jimmy Rios. He shared why access to capital is only part of the equation. We talked about the difference between business credit, personal credit, and why so many founders stay stuck in a cycle of funding and debt, and how building the right financial foundation creates leverage. His message was crystal clear. Getting money is one thing. Building a business that can keep it is another. And our founder last week was Ben Perot, founder of Parafoil. He challenged how we think about leadership development. We explored why so many managers feel overwhelmed, how AI can reduce cognitive load, and why measuring the right behaviors gives leaders better visibility into what's actually working. At the center of a conversation was a simple truth. Better leadership starts with better feedback and better judgment. If you want to learn more about either of those, go back and give those episodes a listen. My guest today is Rick DeLisi, co-founder of the Effortless Experience and digital customer service. He's also one of the people behind the customer effort score metric that is used by companies around the world to understand what really drives loyalty. Rick has spent years studying customer service, customer experience, and the friction that quietly pushes customers away. From Gartner to Glia and across industries like airlines, hospitality, and banking, his work keeps coming back to one core idea. Customers don't want more handholding. They don't want more channels. They don't want more touch points. They want things to be freaking easy. Welcome someone who's helped redefine how businesses think about customer loyalty by making service simpler, smarter, and easier. Rick DeLisi. Hey, Rick, welcome to SaaS Fuel.
Hey, Jeff, thanks for having me.
You helped create the customer effort score, which I think is brilliant. The metric now used by hundreds of. When you first started studying service experiences, what did you notice that most leaders were missing?
Companies are asking the wrong question to try to assess the quality of the interactions that they're having with customers. So we all know that the traditional questions that have been asked in what we'd call post-interaction surveys are either the satisfaction question, the CSAT question, how satisfied were you with that interaction?
Right.
Or the seemingly more progressive question is the net promoter score question, how likely are you to recommend us to a friend or colleague? And what we learned is that neither one of those questions does a really good job of assessing that particular customer's future loyalty based on the experience that they just had with you. So we wondered, why are companies even asking these questions? What are they really trying to learn? And what's the point? And so what we discovered after using lots of different permutations and lots of different questions, that the single question you can ask somebody right after they've interacted with your company to predict their future loyalty is, how much effort was required for you to get what you needed from that interaction? That
Wow.
question is much more about you than it is about the company. Those other two questions are frankly very company centric. How
They are.
likely are you to recommend us? Who's the subject and who's the object in that question? But when you ask a person how much effort was required for you to get what you needed, a person who says, that was a surprisingly easy interaction, or I got exactly what I needed with very little hassle, that customer is virtually guaranteed to remain loyal to your company. But somebody who says, that was a high effort experience. It required more effort than I thought it would. It was a big hassle. I felt like I was getting the runaround. Those are the vulnerable customers. Those are the customers who are most likely to become disloyal, either immediately as a result of the interaction or at some period down the road. And that's the exact situation that companies need to be painfully aware of. Who are our customers that seem like they've been loyal to us in the past, but who are potentially vulnerable to the next best offer that comes from a competitor? Or to have a customer who's been loyal for years suddenly thinking, wait a minute, maybe I ought to see who else is out there in this space. And I can share plenty of examples of what we would call insidious disloyalty, a sort of slowly burning ember of disloyalty that eventually erupts into a full flame at the next opportunity to do business with somebody else.
That's really interesting. And you're right. I think companies have obsessed for a long time CSAT, NPS, and I think that's a really unique take. The company, it's not really
It
about the
is.
person. Definitely self-serving.
It reminds me of the joke of the definition of a bad first date is when the person sitting across the table from you says, I'm tired of speaking about myself. What do you think of me?
Oh, wow.
And customer centricity, which virtually every company in the world says, oh no, we're very customer centric, is
Right.
surprisingly elusive and achieved by only a small percentage of companies.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah. Instead of
I
spending so
think
much time thinking about your customers, what companies really need to learn to do, and this is hard, is to think like your customers. So I'll ask you, Jeff, why do you think it's so hard for companies to think like their customers?
that's a really good question. And I think part of it is it's really easier for us to jump back in the marketing seat
Right.
and think about it that way. But some of it, I think we've never been our customer.
Right.
I think that's a big part of it. But then just not taking the time, not spending enough time with them and understanding their why and what the experience is. And I think this happens a lot. How many times have founders called into their own support
Right.
just to see what that experience is like? And we haven't experienced it, so we don't know. And we're just making guesses instead of really seeing the world through their eyes.
Yeah. And a big part of this is a mental mismatch. If you're an executive in a given company, your mind share is virtually 100% about your company, what you're trying
Yeah.
to achieve, what limitations or regulations that you're dealing with. We at Glia work exclusively in the banking industry, so a heavily regulated industry, also very risk averse. What are our competitors doing? How are we succeeding compared to our goals? What are all the internal challenges that we're dealing with? And those are critically important if you're an executive of a company. And those things matter exactly 0% to your customers. They don't know what you're dealing with and they don't care.
Yeah.
Plus, if you're an executive, you're thinking about your company virtually 100% of the time. But if you're a customer, even if you're the most loyal, raving fan customer, are you really thinking about any given company more than 0.01% of the time? And so
No,
that inherent mismatch makes it real hard to take your brain out of your head and think with somebody else's brain.
it is. I think it's fascinating. And you've applied this in multiple industries, finance now with Glia,
Yeah.
previously airlines, hospitality, Gartner. What do those industries, and especially Glia now, teach you about customer expectations that SaaS founders should be paying attention to, especially now?
In general, customers want to be loyal, meaning to continue to be a customer of your company, particularly in any industry where becoming a customer takes some effort on your part. So let's take banking just as an example. Signing up with a new account with a new bank, logging into online banking, transferring your funds over, all of that requires some degree of hassle. And you wouldn't have made that decision if you thought you were making a poor one. So, in
Yes.
general, customers don't want to have to switch companies. Customers don't want to have to abandon everything they've done in the past and start all over again. Customers want to remain loyal. Companies too often think about how can we make our customers more loyal? And I'm not even sure I know what that means. If you're already a customer, if you're already doing business with this company, other than potentially being open to new offers or maybe deepening your share of wallet or taking advantage of new products and services, you're already a customer. You're already loyal. But the issue is, will you ever have an experience that makes you suddenly become disloyal or start to look around and think about who else you could be doing business with? So, trying to promote loyalty is far less fruitful or even practical than mitigating disloyalty. And that's where effort in service interactions comes in. When a person leaves an experience feeling like, oof, that was just way more of a hassle than I thought it would be, or I got passed along from one person to another and had to repeat my whole story again, or I felt like they've abandoned me. That makes an individual customer feel like, why did I ever become a customer of this company in the first place? That's exactly what every company needs to avoid. So instead of
Yes.
concentrating so much on how do we promote loyalty, you ought to be thinking about, is there anything that we're doing that even inadvertently is forcing people to want to become more disloyal?
It's really good. And you mentioned something earlier, insidious disloyalty. I
Yeah.
think that's a fascinating term. And is that more dangerous, less dangerous than overt disloyalty, where somebody just doesn't want to do business with a company?
It's way more dangerous. And here's why, Jeff. If I contact you and say, I had a terrible experience, you guys stink, you've disrespected me, cancel my account, I'll never do business with you again. That sounds terrible, and it is to a degree, but there's at least an opportunity to try to recover that relationship. There's at least an opportunity to learn something from your experience. If we can't save you, perhaps we could learn something about your experience that prevents us from creating the same type of experience for others. So, overt disloyalty. You stink. I'm canceling my account. I'm sending an email to the CEO and telling you how terrible you are. That's at least something you can work with. But
Right.
insidious disloyalty is the customer who just quietly disappears in the night. There's never an explanation given. There's no opportunity to recover the service opportunity. There's no opportunity to save the relationship. And we didn't learn anything. So, insidious disloyalty economically is the same result as overt disloyalty, but the opportunity doesn't exist to try to recover or try to learn.
That is really big. That silent disengagement. What does that look like inside of a SaaS company?
It almost always looks, let's see what your competitors are offering. Or,
Mm.
that sales guy who calls me every month and I blow him off? This time I'm going to listen to that pitch.
Ah,
Or, wow, we didn't consider your company before, but based on the experience we just had with the company we did choose, now we're suddenly much more interested in what you have to say. So it looks like openness to a new relationship. If you're a salesperson for a SaaS company, if there was any way of you finding out which of your prospects just had a bad experience with their current vendor, you'd be all over that.
yes. Yes, without a doubt. Yeah, certainly a big opening. And they don't say anything. I think that's probably the scariest part is they don't say anything, and by the time they're canceling and they've already signed with somebody else and they're gone. So
Here's a concept. See if you go along with this. I think it largely holds water, and that is there's no such thing as a product failure. Of course, on its face, that sounds stupid because products fail all the time. whether it's a software product or a mechanical product or a service
Sure.
product, products fail. But my point is, when a customer experiences any kind of a product failure, it immediately then becomes a service issue. And that customer's future loyalty will not necessarily be reflective of the product failure, but of the failure of the service team to make good on the failure. So invariably, disloyalty doesn't come from your product stinks. It comes from, I had a problem with your product, and the way you tried to fix it wasn't correct for me. It was a high effort experience, or I felt disrespected in the way you tried to repair what was wrong. A product failure is bad, but in the minds of most customers, as it comes to their future loyalty, they'll largely be thinking about the service interaction they had rather than the product failure itself.
That's really good. It's because you're right. Every company has product issues. It's just that's part of it. It's part of life.
Right.
But how you deal with that is the really separates the winners from the losers. I think about what great service is, and when we think about companies that have outstanding service, there are characteristics of that. And I think it is really how they deal with crisis, how they deal with problems, not how they deal with things when everything's great, but it's how they deal with it when things are not great
Right.
that really separates the winners from the losers on a service experience.
One of the books that's gained a lot of traction in the industry over the years is a book called The Best Service is No Service. That sounds like a panacea to me. It's great to be able to proactively diagnose potential failures and get out ahead of them. That's a great idea. But there's always going to be some problem. There's always going to be some issue. How you handle it makes all the difference in the world. Now, again, if the same thing fails over and over again, then that product or that company is a mismatch to you. But at the initial moment of having some kind of an issue or some help that you need, the way the company responds to it is going to be the difference as to whether or not you remain loyal.
And the origin story there, why now and why service experience?
Glia was founded 14 years ago by three guys who were originally working as consultants to Best Buy. So let's tie all those ropes together. If you can picture back to 15 or so years ago, retailers like Best Buy realized, wow, investing all this money in these physical stores, these brick and mortar establishments, is now seeming more archaic because being able to do stuff online is now suddenly the preferred way that people shop and interact with companies. And so these three founders were working on a project for Best Buy, trying to develop digital or online experiences that rivaled the in-store experience that people had at Best Buy. It turned out to be a great idea because, as we all know, online retail is now as or more powerful than in-person brick and mortar retail.
Right.
If we had predicted a couple of years ago, like all stores and all malls will be completely extinct in a few years, that didn't quite happen. But the dominance that physical locations in brick and mortar had 15 years ago has now been roughly equalized to the online experience. So those guys started working with Best Buy to try to create online experiences that were as good or better than the in-store experience. Glia was founded as a digital company, but over the past couple of years now, we've continued to evolve to becoming an AI company, being able to create even better experiences for people in the online world by being able to differentiate service issues and needs that require human service and those that don't. And so I'd love to talk to you a little bit more about this idea that AI is going to replace all human beings in the service world. We don't believe that's true at all, but in about 50% of interactions, the everyday needs that customers have, they can be resolved without a human with an intelligent banking platform. And so being able to balance live in-person interactions with digital self-service interactions or virtual assistants is now the new hallmark of success for banks and credit unions. Being able to offer exactly the right interaction for the right customer at the right time.
And is that more than just bringing channels together?
Yes,
How does that work in practice?
that's certainly a part of it. There can't be any disconnect between digital interactions and voice interactions, which can take two forms: calling on the phone or speaking to somebody through your computer. But the key for banks and credit unions is to identify exactly which customer issues require a human and which don't, and then proactively offering the right style of interaction for that customer's need at that moment. When you think about it, something like 99% of all interactions that a customer will ever do with a bank or credit union are inbound. So I'm contacting you because I have some kind of an issue. In the banking world, when you analyze the reasons, the issue types, or what we call customer needs, that would drive a person to contact their bank, they fall into a predictable pattern of about 15 or 20 top issues. Think about it yourself. Reasons that you've had to contact your bank or credit union. What would some of those be in your world? Why would you ever have to contact your bank?
Could be some sort of an account change.
Yeah,
It could be missing deposit
yeah,
or a withdrawal, a dispute.
yeah.
And outside of that, some sort of a customer service issue that couldn't be resolved through an FAQ or online, something like that. But you're right. There's a fairly small subset. It's probably true across most companies.
It probably
That-
is.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you sit in the contact center of any company, you're going to hear the same issues coming up over and over again. There's
right.
always a one-off, or there's always a, wow, I never heard that one before. Those are interesting and they're fun to talk about, but the vast majority of issues fall into a tight pattern. The number one reason that people call banks still to this day is, I want to check my balance. And when you think about it that
Interesting.
way, there's no need to speak to a human being to check your balance. Now, you
Right.
could have done that online. You could have just gone online and logged into your account and checked your balance. But here we are in 2026, and still banks and credit unions are getting tens or hundreds of thousands of calls every year. And about half of them are for routine quotidian issues that can easily be resolved by virtual assistants. I remember recently speaking to a woman who's head of customer experience for a bank in Connecticut, and she said, there's no inherent value in hearing your balance from a person. So if your need is, I need to check my balance, and by the way, the actual need is, I got to make sure that this next purchase I'm going to make is not going to be bounced or that I'm going to have my card declined at a point of sale.
Right.
That's the reason people call and check their balance, or did that check clear, or did my social security check come through, all of those kinds of things. You don't need to speak to a person for that. And so when virtual assistants or AI can resolve that exact issue within zero point 0.5 nanoseconds, that's a great low effort experience.
Yes.
However, if it's something more complex than that, like there's fraud on my account, or there's been a death in the family and we need to deal with probate issues, or my card was declined and I have no idea why, then speaking to a person really matters.
It
But
does.
a system that is able to immediately distinguish which issues can be resolved with virtual assistants and which can't, and then pass those issues on to a live agent, is the hallmark of creating low effort experiences. Let me go you one better though. For the issues that require a human being, imagine if by the time you're speaking to that live human, they're not saying, hi, I'm Rick, how may I help you? They already know who you are and they already know what your issue is. And think about what a different experience that is. So instead of saying, hi, I'm Rick, how may I help you? The agent is able to say, hey, Mr. Main, it's great to talk to you. Looks like you're trying to apply for an auto loan. I can totally help you with that. In fact, I've already started the process.
Wow. Now that's a way different experience because I think that's probably one of the most common complaints
It is.
is customers hate repeating themselves. Oh, no, I'm going to be transferred again and I got to explain all this stuff again. So are you able to take that context then and transfer it from digital to human?
Yes. If you contact the company, whether it's online through chat or whether it's on the telephone, by the time the live agent enters the equation, they already know who you are because you've been authenticated in the system. And they already have a strong likelihood of understanding what your issue is because of whatever you've clicked on or whatever you've selected from a menu, or even you've just said to the AI virtual assistants, I'm going to apply for an auto loan. it immediately transmits all that information to the agent so that on their screen, before they even say hello to you, is all of your account information, past interactions that you've had with the bank, as well as information that you need to proceed forward with an auto loan. Forms that need to be filled out, questions you might have to answer. All that is pre-populated on the agent's screen so that by the time they say hello to you, they're saying hello in context, in the context of the need that you have and the interaction that you already began a minute or two ago. So to your point, it's a totally different experience. And yet, it's still the same two people, and they're still resolving the same exact issue. That
Right.
is what low effort feels like in today's world.
I just love that idea of low effort, and it reminds me of the old easy button commercials.
Right.
And pushing the buttons, wow, that was easy.
But
That's
again,
the experience that we want.
remember that that was started by Staples, but that was
Yes.
largely about buying stuff. So, of
Yes.
course, you don't want there to be any unnecessary hassles that stand between a potential customer and a sale. So that makes total sense. But here, what we're talking about is dealing with existing customers who have some kind of a problem or an issue. And that is a very different psychological mindset than I'm trying to buy something from you. But
Yes.
in either case, if it's a big hassle, that's a terrible experience.
Yeah.
But in the case of somebody who's already a customer, already been a loyal customer for years, there's way more at stake if they have a high effort experience. And they're contacting you because they have a need.
Ready to dominate your market and skyrocket your revenue? Dive into Small Fish Big Pond, delivering a world class business that swims circles around competitors. This book is packed with powerful marketing and leadership insights guaranteed to transform your business and operate world class. Small Fish Big Pond delivers proven strategies to sharpen your marketing message, deliver unmatched value to your clients, and guide your prospects' buying journey to one inevitable conclusion: that your company is the only solution for them. Inside, you'll find step by step frameworks and time tested growth principles to attract your ideal clients, convert them, and then turn them into your passionate brand ambassadors. Grab your copy today in print, ebook, or audio at smallfishbigpond.com or on Amazon. Plus, remember, every book sale supports charity. All profits go there. Always have, always will. So dive in and make a difference. Oh, that's really good. And where is AI genuinely improving customer service today? And maybe where is it accidentally increasing the effort by making customers fight through that automation instead of improving the service?
Let's talk about AI, and there's really two flavors. There's generic AI. So those are vendors and tech companies that offer AI solutions across a wide range of different industries. The kinds of poor AI experiences that people have had in the past, expressing their need through the phone or through chat to a bot or virtual assistant that doesn't understand their issue or misdirects them, or even worse, hallucinates and gives them bad information, is because those experiences come from dealing with generic AI vendors. But when you're dealing with a company that provides service in an exclusive vertical, in this case, banking, the AI there already understands all the basic issues that anybody would ever have with a bank. And again, there's a limited subset. Now, what's interesting is there's a variety of different ways that a person might express the same need, but ultimately, however they choose to articulate it, it's still the same need. So, banking specific AI or vertical industry specific AI gets very good, very fast at understanding exactly not just what people need, but the variety of ways that they might ask for it or articulate it.
Oh, that's really good. What do you think the biggest misconception is that leaders have about good customer service?
That every interaction requires a human being and that every interaction is an opportunity for relationship building. For example, I'll just say it out loud. We've banked at Capital One for years. And while I rarely go into a branch, and decreasingly frequently these days, a couple of years ago, they realized we got to do a better job of creating a relationship with our customers. And so
Yes.
they forced all of their frontline people, in this case, tellers, to force these pseudo-friendly personal conversations with people in ways that only worked or were appropriate some of the time. If I'm just coming in to cash a check or to make a deposit, asking me, how's your family doing? Or what are you doing this weekend? Or have you considered some of our other products? Like these fake, friendly, forced
Yes.
relationship questions, I find that to be obnoxious. If I have a need, or if I'm applying for a mortgage, or if I'm looking to pursue some new financial strategy, that's when a relationship matters. But when I'm just going in to cash a check, forcing a relationship upon me seems like it's just something you're trying to do. It doesn't take me into consideration. Once again, I'm the object of this interaction versus the subject. So the
Right.
idea that every interaction requires this kind of relationship building moment is just simply untrue. There are some that are relationship opportunities and others that aren't. So the best of banking specific AI is able to immediately distinguish the difference. And so if it's a simple everyday routine need, you get what you need instantaneously. If back and forth iteration is required, or if understanding a little bit more about your issue or probing a little bit more deeply is required, then you're immediately transitioned to a human who, again, already knows who you are and has a sense of what your issue is. So the idea that everything needs to be a relationship moment is absolutely not true. But conversely, the idea that everything can be automated is also untrue.
Right.
And there are some companies that seem to be moving or aspiring in the direction of we're going to have zero human contact with our customers. Everything is going to be done through AI. So either of those extreme approaches fails to recognize the fact that some issues are human relationship issues and others are just give me what I need as fast as possible.
It makes a lot of sense. It kind of a hybrid of that I've seen fall apart is trying to take the AI relationship, and we're trying to take the AI and make it relational.
Yes.
So it's AI creating fake text that's supposed to be friendly and engaging and personalized,
Right.
but AI doesn't get it, how relationships happen or when those questions are right or not. And we get those in emails all the time.
Right.
It's wow, that was a really bad use of AI.
Yeah. Did that approach ever work? I don't know. Maybe it might have at some point, but I think most of us have been around enough experiences, often bad AI experiences, to realize this is just some veiled attempt to try to get me to do something. And
Right.
immediately that feels disrespectful to customers.
It does. And it's not genuine. And I think that's the point of personalization is to make that personal connection and for it to be genuine. But then that is completely undone and undermined by the AI faking it.
There was a period of time in which the Safeway grocery store chain said to all of its checkout clerks, always greet your customer by name. And that's fine if your name is Jeff Maines. My last name, DeLisi, is a little bit easier to mispronounce. So when somebody makes believe they know me and then they say, hi, Mr. Delisle or Mr. DeLuca, like if you fake being friendly with me and you're forced to use my name and you can't pronounce my name, it's just so obvious what you're trying to do.
Yeah. It's awkward. It comes from a good place of its good intent.
Right.
And in reality, it just doesn't work because it's not genuine. It's not natural.
Right. The other thing that you see, Jeff, is the idea that before we talked about customer centricity, a lot of companies talk about we know what our customers like. Here's what our customers are all about. Anytime any organization uses the term our customers to describe a collective group of disparate people as if they all think with the same brain, you're going to be wrong some or a high percentage of time. For
Right.
example, customers love it when you use their name. Do they? I don't. You know
A
me,
few
great.
maybe.
If you know me and we've had interactions in the past, that's great. But don't fake like you know me by using my name. There's no value in reading my name and then saying it out loud. That, for me personally, that doesn't do anything. That just comes
Right.
across as totally inauthentic.
Yeah.
But again,
I
the
suppose it
idea,
demonstrates they can read.
yeah, our customers like this or our customers hate that. If you're not breaking it down by percentages, you're wrong. Because even in the most cohesive customer base, there's still a wide range of expectations and mentalities and histories and needs. So to talk about your customers like they're a collective group, an individual customer doesn't think of themselves as part of a collective group. You do because you're the company, but I think of
Right.
myself as me and me only.
I think that goes back to just marketing and segmentation.
Right.
And we're going to take that and there's a group of people and we're just going to bundle them all together and assume that they're a certain way because some percentage of them are.
Right.
And so we're just going to apply that characteristic to everybody. And I don't think that works. Probably never did. Maybe it's better than random. But now I think there's the expectations have raised and that it really is a market of one.
Right.
And technology has given us the ability to really understand that and connect in ways and humans to connect in ways that make sense. We're really serving the individual. And a lot of the grunt work, the repetitive tasks are being handled by technology. So we can have those personal relationships. We can really be invested.
And it simplifies things if you work at a company to think of your customer base as having one unified collective mindset. It's easier for you if you said, oh my God, we have 1 million customers, and that means there's 1 million different people who have 1 million different reasons for being customers. You'd want to blow your brains out. That's way too much to try to deal with. So the simplicity of these segmentations or these personas makes you sleep well at night if you're the head of marketing, but it's just not true to how humans operate.
What do we do instead?
Is be able to cater to the exact need that the person has at the moment they're reaching out to us. Now, again, let's differentiate service and support from marketing. And here's one fundamental difference. In the world of marketing, part of your job is mind share. What can we do as an organization to have more people thinking about us more often, right? That's what trying to capture mind share is all about. But when you think about it, when it comes to service and support, isn't the real goal exactly the opposite? A person had a problem, they contacted us, we resolved it in such an efficient and effortless way, thinking about the problem or even thinking about us. Your success in marketing comes when you can get a person to think about you 1% more than they would have before. But your success in service is at the exact moment where the customer forgot that it was ever a problem in the first place. And they go right back to being just as loyal as they were before. So there's these diametrically opposed mindsets or goals between marketing and service and support that are often conflated.
So, why is a customer effort score such a strong predictor of future customer behavior? How do we know that's really driving loyalty?
It isn't, again, driving loyalty, but it is mitigating disloyalty.
Gotcha.
Here's a bit of a trick question, but it's fun to ask. For any given company, what percentage of your customers are loyal right now? I'm going to guess there
I
is.
would say all of them because they're all paid.
That's funny, Jeff. I've asked that question many times, and most people don't get it right away, but you did. The answer is 100%. If you're a customer, you're loyal right now, but loyalty isn't really a present state consideration. It's really
That's
a
true.
prediction of what you're going to do in the future. Are you going to be loyal tomorrow and a month from now and a year from now? And so the service interactions that customers have ultimately create the biggest impact on future loyalty. If there was a problem where I had a need and it was resolved in a fast, easy, effortless way, I continue on being a customer and being as loyal as I ever was. And that's all a company could ever hope for. But again, if it's a high effort experience or a big hassle, or I felt disrespected in that interaction, now I'm suddenly vulnerable. And so stop worrying so much about driving loyalty with service. Drive loyalty with your products. Drive loyalty by creating stuff that people get real value out of. That the jobs to be done idea, this idea of the psychological benefit or what I get out of being your customer or using your product satisfies me in some deeply personal way. But when it comes to service, your job should be to create an experience that erases the bad thing as if it never happened.
I like that. If a founder wants to diagnose high effort friction points within their service process or really any process, but specifically we're talking about customer service, where should they start looking? Is it onboarding? Is it support tickets, billing, renewals, something else?
It comes down to asking the effort question of people who've just had service interactions. So the question is, how much effort was required for you to get what you needed? And while it would be wonderful to say, every single customer said it was a low effort experience, that's great. Just if every single customer said, I'm a 9 or 10 out of 10 in being willing to recommend you to a friend or colleague, that's great and it makes you feel wonderful. But here's the thing, you don't learn anything from that. You don't
Mm.
learn anything from somebody who had a nominal or even a great experience until you then follow it up with, tell us a little bit more about what was great about it, or why did you find this to be so easy? But the point of asking the effort question isn't hoping people will give you a good score. It's to diagnose where effort is happening in the interaction that customer just had. So a person who said that was a high effort experience, you'd want to immediately get back to that customer and diagnose what exactly was it that seemed high effort to you? What were you expecting? What was your actual experience? And what can we learn from that experience that can allow us to prevent that same thing from happening to others? And so the point of asking any question isn't hoping we get a good score, although that is commonly the refrain in big companies. The point of asking these questions is to see what isn't working so well so that we can diagnose it, fix it for this customer, and ideally prevent that same thing from happening to others.
That is absolute gold. Just so much value in that question and just the high effort. And then we're really getting an understanding of what does that look like.
Right.
And just like you said before, gives us the ability to see the world through the eyes of our ideal client. And
Very
that's
much
maybe
so.
one of the only ways that we can do that is having those conversations.
And again, this false sense of customer centricity that many companies have comes from an over reliance on surveys. Surveys should always and only be the entry point for more qualitative follow up discussions that you have with at least a limited subset of customers, in which you can ask additional questions and follow up second, third, fourth level iteration. That's where insight comes from. Insight rarely just comes from quantitative responses to surveys. It almost always comes from a deeper understanding of what that person was thinking and is thinking, which can never be fully garnered just from any kind of quantitative measures.
That's great. And qualitative is so much easier now with AI
Yeah.
and being able to process that unstructured data where that was really difficult even just a few years ago.
And also, qualitative requires a surprisingly small sample to begin to gather important insights. For example, if a big company were to survey 10 customers and get a readout of those responses, no right minded company would ever want to make any decisions based on a survey of 10 people.
Right.
But if you had 10 quality conversations with customers who've all had similar experiences, I'm very certain that by the time you got to conversation 5 or 6, you'd already be hearing the same things again. The point
Hmm.
is, it doesn't take that many interviews or focus groups to really learn what's going on inside people's heads. You wouldn't be comfortable with a survey of an N, or total number of respondents, less than a couple of thousand. But even if you did 2 focus groups of 8 people and asked in depth questions and follow up responses and an iteration, by the time you were in the middle of the second focus group, you'd be saying, we're hearing some of the same stuff we heard in the first. So
Right.
qualitative work always seems like it's so much harder, but you have to do so much less of it to really feel like you understand your customers better than you had before.
That's really good. For a founder who wants customers to stay loyal for years, what is the single most important change they can make in their customer service experience starting now, maybe this quarter?
I would say, again, for customers who aren't having a distinct service issue at this moment, the thing companies really need to try to dial in is, how does becoming our customer benefit you personally? Not just your company, not just bottom line results, but what do you personally get out of being our customer? How does this promote the success of your career? How does this promote the success of other projects that you've been advocating for? How does this help you feel like you have a true, distinct competitive advantage? So, again, the questions that need to be asked are not so much about how do you like our product or how likely are you to recommend us, but what is the value you personally get out of your decision to become our customer? How does your decision to be our customer make you feel better about yourself? When you start to probe those psychological areas, that's where real insight about loyalty comes from. Because
Yes.
ultimately, even what a company would describe as the most loyal customer isn't necessarily loyal to your company. What they're loyal to is their own decision to become a customer of your company.
Right.
So everything is ultimately a reflection of our own sense of self or our own ego. I don't mean super ego. I don't mean like being an egotist, but like how we feel about ourselves is the most important thing in every one of our lives. So stop focusing so much on what customers think of you, but try to probe more deeply into how customers feel about themselves as a result of their decision to be your customer.
That's absolute gold. And I think it's something that's missed a lot in B2B interactions
Yeah,
is they think that it's a company, it's business, but it's not. It is personal. There is a reason they made that decision and they've got personal equity in that. And what is the benefit that they're getting or not?
right.
And how are you making them look good? Are you making them look bad? Or is it neutral? What is the benefit that they're getting by continuing to choose you versus recommend something else or just step back and go, I don't know, you guys go pick something else.
Yeah, I think you could argue that being an individual person who's part of an organization that works with other companies, so that's a B2B relationship, but viewed through the lens of the individual person at the purchasing company, is
Yes.
like being a consumer, but it's even more intense because the decisions that you have made to become a customer of various vendors and suppliers impacts not just you, but hundreds of thousands of other people at your company. If you purchase an automobile and you don't like that car after a while, that's just you. But if you purchase an entire fleet of cars for your entire company, now there's hundreds of other people who are impacted by your decision. So psychologically, it's more similar than different, but it's way more intense because now you're representing hundreds or thousands of others.
And your livelihood could be tied to that decision. I think that's one of the biggest things from a software perspective is you have to make sure that we're making our advocates or decision makers look good inside their organizations.
Yeah.
They've got to be the hero.
I'm familiar with certain situations where talking to people who might potentially be interested in our company, Glia, immediately recognize the value, recognize that what is being offered is far superior to what they've had in the past in a way that would benefit them, their company, and their customers. However, because they were part of the decision to work with the other vendor, there's now this sense of, wow, if we change now, it'll reflect poorly on me because it's
Right.
obvious I made a poor decision to go with those guys when I could have gone with you. And then there's a resistance to changing because it makes it feel like now I have to admit I made a poor choice in the original buying decision.
Yeah, that's a tough place to be.
But again, it always comes down to how we feel about ourselves and how we feel we're being viewed by others.
Really good. Where can people learn more about you and about Glia online?
Yeah, come right to our website, glia.com. A host of resources available. Also, a little button on the top right called Get Started. If you've never seen a demo of our AI for banking products, we'd be thrilled to show all of that to you. Plus, case studies of lots of other banks and credit unions that are evolving the way they're serving their customers and finding this exact right balance between virtual assistants and AI assisted live assistants. So, we believe that 0% of all interaction should be human only, meaning every interaction is either resolved fully by the virtual assistant or by a live agent whose performance and productivity is being aided by agent-facing AI tools like calling up information about this customer and their issue and resolution tips for that specific need. So AI should be a part of every interaction, making things way easier for customers, way easier for your frontline, and then ultimately more efficient and successful for your company.
Outstanding. We'll make sure and link that in the show notes. And I love that. Everybody should go take a look at the demo. It's very good. Rick, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for being on SaaS Fuel.
Great to talk to you. Obviously, we're birds of a feather, Jeff. We come from very similar mindsets, and it was fun talking to you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Thanks again, Rick, for coming on the show and sharing your journey and insights. You can learn more about Rick and Glia at glia.com. It's Glia, glia.com. As always, all links, highlights, resources, and full show notes are available at saasfuel.com. And be sure to check out our YouTube channel as well, as @ChampionLeadership is our handle. And over there, we've got lots of resources for you, full podcast episodes, trainings, outtakes, shorts, and I released a series a little earlier called Future Proof Surviving SaaSpocalypse, where I go over pricing ladders, how pricing is shifting, what moats are, what they used to be, what they are today, and what you need to do to build a company that is viable and thriving over the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years. So go over there and check that out on YouTube. You know, thought leaders share. Share this episode with the founder who's always thinking big, but still hasn't fixed the obvious small thing. Everyone who shares this week gets a gentle but relentless reminder that scale breaks what you refuse to fix early. Why do so many companies struggle to turn Gen AI into real business value? Well, next up, Justin Trumbull joins us to break down why most enterprise AI strategies stall out and what it takes to move from experimentation to scalable impact. And then 1 week from today, what happens when podcasting becomes more than content and starts becoming a platform for real authority and connection? Really excited about this episode. Harry Duran is going to be with us, founder of Fullcast, and he shares what he's learned from launching shows, interviewing hundreds of guests, and helping business owners find their voice in a way that actually moves people. And Harry had a huge part in helping get this show launched as well. So super excited to have him on. So I'll see you next time. And as always, enjoy the journey.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/SaaSfuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.